Welcome to the TALKESHI podcast, episode 4, even though it should be 5, right? But, uh, so to be honest, I had a few reasons to not post last week, one of them being that I was going through some shit, and the place where I didn't have Wi-Fi or anything, so I couldn't just, shoot an episode and upload it, and I also mistakenly thought that me as a non-black person shouldn't speak on not shouldn't speak, but I shouldn't speak over. There's a difference, because I have been using my voice to amplify other people, to amplify black voices and everything, but I do have this platform and I am going to use it as per some suggestions, right? I was actually gonna have a host, not a host, a go a ghost. I was actually gonna have a guest on today because I really didn't want to just I want let me explain. So one of the podcast listeners, she said that she wanted to talk about all of this on this podcast, but of course, due to some scheduling and stuff like that, well, she couldn't be here. Hopefully she'll be here next week or throughout the week whenever we can shoot. And yeah, I really wanted to bring her on because she could of course tell you how she feels about all this as a Afro-Latina. But of course, she couldn't be here, so I'm just gonna talk about things that I can, not that I can talk about, but I don't know if I'm getting through things that I can see from my point of view here on the island. For example, there's a lot of racism on the island, and I think the conversation has started. I think a lot of people are taking note of that, and they are discussing it a lot, to the point that we are seeing more ignorance than ever about race, nationality, ethnicity, etc. here on the island. But yeah, I don't even know where that sentence started or where that sentence ended. I'm just, it's like all week I've been kind of just a ball of emotions seeing all this go down. But so of course I don't have to tell you all what has been going down this and last week. The murder of George Floyd by the hands of a police officer has sparked a lot of outrage and riots, and just a lot of protesting, justifiably. Um, this has been the thing is that this isn't something that happened now. I can't believe the support that I've seen from celebrities, the news coverage, everything going down because of this last murder, but this has been an ongoing problem that has affected African Americans for the longest time. You don't need me to tell you that. You don't need me to like just be an influencer and be like racism is bad and just make it all about me. Of course, a lot of you know this, and this is just I'm kind of just reporting the news here. But it's also sparked a lot of conversation on race and just police brutality and all these things that black people have been trying to tell us all this time, so I'm glad that some kind of change is starting. That's debatable, but well, at least thankfully, the murders have been charged and arrested and all of this stuff, but that's not justice yet. We'll see when the verdicts come and all these things. That'll be justice if it's done correctly. So, of course, this has all started a conversation here in PR, which I will kind of just talk about a bit. I can't talk about it personally, but I can talk about it as a person who has seen it and tried to stop it at many points, and have tried to change my bias, the way I can handle it, right? So I want to talk about race in Puerto Rico. In Puerto Rico, I feel like we think it's extremely different to the United States when it's really not. So in the United States, English white settlers came and invaded the whole fucking place. And with them, they brought black slaves, African slaves, and they ransacked the United States. And of course, what was I gonna say? The point is that, sorry for that. The point is that here in PR, the same thing happened. Spanish settlers came and invaded the whole fucking place. With them, they brought African slaves. And invaded indigenous land. That's what I was about to say. That they invaded indigenous land both in America, in the United States, sorry, and in Puerto Rico. And I don't know why in Puerto Rico we have this discourse of the three races. In the United States, there isn't a discourse of like whether of what race you are. You know, you're either white, black, or any other race. But in PR, there is this thing where we say we are all three races. We are Spanish. I mean, Spanish isn't a race, but we are white, black, and indigenous, and that is simply not true. While it could be true that we have this lineage, and it is true that we have it in our own culture. You know, there's African and Spanish food, which is brought by them, and other things in the cultures like dances and everything. It's not true as an identity, as racialization. So of course you can see me and you can say that I'm white, right? Because I had 3 other grandparents of color and I had to look like my white one, right? Genetics are crazy. So I can't really say that I am black, even if my grandparents are, my great-grandparents are. I can't really say that because I'm not going to be treated as them, for example. And I think it was really interesting when Alexandra Lugaro brought that topic to us, because she sparked some controversy by saying that she has white privilege, which in the United States wouldn't have been a problem. You know, like a lot of people have been saying, like, due to my white privilege, I cannot speak on this. Jane Fonda, for example, or like not just speak on it, but like I can't tell you my experiences because I have white privilege or whatever, right? So the Alexandra Lugaro said that, like, let's keep in mind, I don't really support her or anything, but of course I agree with her statement because white privilege is a thing here in Puerto Rico just as much as in the United States. And a lot of people took it as she was saying that she was happy, that she was privileged to be white. And of course, like, I don't want to blame it completely on dumbass people that misconstrued her message, but there is kind of like a language barrier that kind of led to that misconstruction to her being misinterpreted, because that's what it sounded like. It sounded like she was happy that she was white and that she was not black. But of course we all know what she was saying. She was saying that she is protected by this white privilege because she will not experience the brutality or the violence that the state and the police have caused to black people all this time. And so will I. You know, I like to say that, of course, look at so many of my Afro-Latina friends, I'm not going to be treated the same way that they are. Ever since I was a kid, people would tell me that I, like, looked gringa, or was I a gringa or something, and that, well, as a kid, it annoyed me because I did not want to identify with the United States in any way. As an adult, well, now I see, like, I had white privilege, and it's definitely telling of my race, of my presentation, of my, and that really says something when people kind of don't want to acknowledge it and they'd rather just make it all about them and be like, oh, but I have a black grandparent. Well, yeah, that makes your grandparent black. That doesn't make you black. And not only identity, because, like, as me and Eliana were saying, well, she said that we're having an identity crisis, and it's of course true. I feel like we're all talking about this and seeing how we can identify with, and I think, of course, that depends on your experience. My experience has been that I've been protected by white privilege my whole life, of course, and my Afro-Latina friends, colleagues, etc. haven't. They, of course, go through life being black people, and that means a lot of racism towards them. So, yeah, I didn't know how to end that I'm sorry, I'm still kind of reeling as to what I wanted to say, which was a lot. So yeah, race is being talked about in Puerto Rico. Now, it's not just the identity, of course, it is the racism that people go through, the actual discrimination and injustices that they go through because of it. So, of course, there are a few phrases and a few ideologies that people uphold and are and have embedded into our culture. For example, the term pelo malo. I think we've all heard this. It literally translates to bad hair, which, first of all, no hair is bad. And it's like, it's almost an internalized thing, because some people are like, ay, sí, yo tengo pelo malo. When they just mean African, Afro hair. When they mean, what are the numbers? 4C, 3C? They're just extremely curly Afro hair. And that is just indicative of how internalized racism is in Puerto Rico, of course. And also just to certain communities. There is like, for example, there is a white elite in Puerto Rico. Mainly the people in power are white or white passing. And then you have impoverished communities, which a lot of them are people of color or black. And I feel like that is usually not acknowledged, because there is a lot of, I don't know, it's very gray. It's not very black and white like in the United States, I guess, but it is a thing that happens here. People want to deny that there is the difference between black and white, because they all want to be just like, oh, we're all the same race, we're all Puerto Rican. And no, we're not all going to be treated the same if we all go to the United States, which is another thing. People are always like, oh, like if I go to the United States and I speak Spanish, like you're discriminated against. Don't get me wrong, Karens are gonna bust your ass and you're gonna go viral. But imagine then, if you feel bad about being Latino and going out to the United States and talking Spanish, imagine what an Afro-Latino person feels like when they go to the United States and they have violence put upon them, just like any African American, just like any black person from the United States, and they also speak Spanish. Like, I want y'all to really think about that instead. Anyway, I'm really excited for next week's podcast, because I'm going to have Ileana over, hopefully, and she's going to pretty much control the conversation, and I'm just going to kind of agree with her on certain points, but I really want her to take the floor and really, talk to you about all these things from her point of view, because her point of view as a black person can really give you some perspective on all of these things. And yeah, the conversation is going to be definitely better than just me screaming at the camera about all these things and how racist Puerto Rico can be. I also wanted to talk a bit about police brutality. Now, I'm going to withhold myself, because I don't want to be all Alex Jones up in here screaming at the camera, just red-faced. So police brutality has been a thing for a lot of time, right? I can talk to you about the context of the United States, but I can also talk to you about the context, just in general. A police state is something that people don't think is in our grasp. People really don't think that we are in like the times of yonder, like in the past, where the police were extremely, like also in the movies. I was thinking, like, a lot of people see movies like Hunger Games or Matrix and think, wow, imagine if my country was like that, or like freedom of speech was withheld, where the police were like constantly vigilando everything. It's kind of our reality, especially for minorities. Maybe because you don't experience it as a white person or a privileged person, you don't see it. But it does happen to a lot of groups of people, where the police are constantly, on their ass, to put it lightly. And of course, we've seen so many videos of police brutalizing protesters, and they keep on killing people within these protests, and are extremely violent to even non-black people. Which, of course, let me be clear, we should not shift the conversation to like black people are getting murdered to everyone's getting murdered, because it's the same thing as saying like Black Lives Matter and then someone coming up to you and saying all lives matter. No, there is a link between race and police brutality. Let's not ever forget that. But I can't talk to you about that, though. I've never been racially profiled by the police. I've never been, I'm just talking to you about what I am seeing and how the police have treated the people for so long. Um, so it's not crazy to think that we live in a police state. Look at Trump's speech. That was an attempt, at least, to try to be a police state, pretty much, because these people, what they're doing are protesting. Yes, a lot of them are looting, to be honest. So what? I don't give a shit. You heard it here. Especially big corporations. Like, if don't loot black owned, don't loot local, you know. But certainly big corporations are not going to suffer from this, you know, like Target, for example, which was the biggest example last week. But yeah, I am okay with the looting. I mean, it's not even an issue. Like, it's not like, oh, I am okay with it. I am to be honest, girl, go steal that TV screen. Go redistribute shit, because that's actually what was being done at a certain point in all these protests. But our focus shouldn't be on those material things, is my issue. I feel like people are focusing too much on that and not on, like, the racial injustice. Like, but it's whatever, you know. People are going to value certain things in society that shouldn't be valued. I think it's just an example of that. People are like, some black person got killed by a cop. Happens every time. Target got looted. My discounts. Like, shut the fuck up. But yeah, those are my takes on all these things. Look, I think the most important thing is just to really focus on racial injustice being eradicated. I don't know if those are the words, but just let's focus on the racial injustice instead of, like, the crazy violence that Jake Paul Jake Paul adjacent people are doing. Because if we do, we commit stupid things like bringing in the National Guard for just some peaceful ass protesters, or just protesters in general, which I think is stupid. Let's focus on, you know, supporting these people, because they are actually doing something incredible. They are trying to get, you know, indirectly, they are trying to get us rights. You know, they are focusing on black communities and all of that, but trying to dismantle the way police are right now helps all of us, helps society as a whole, you know, instead of focusing on, and yeah, I'm gonna probably say a controversial statement. I think if the funds, which are excessive, by the way, funds for police are excessive, if the funds went more to education and actual, like, rehabilitation and all of these things that have proven to lower crime, then I think, and the humanization of people that commit misdemeanors. God, I have not spoken correctly today. I'm so sorry. I just woke up like a bit before I did my makeup. But if you think about those things that cause crime and you try to make them better with actually trying to solve the problem instead of just throwing people in jail and killing them for things as stupid as a $20 false bill. Even at that, I feel like people are trying to be like, that's not even true. Even if it was true, are those grounds to kill someone? No. So let me just leave y'all with this. Next week, hopefully I have Ileana here and we can talk about all these things. But let me just leave y'all with this. Black Lives Matter. I will always be on the side of the oppressed instead of the people that are trying to oppress. That is just how it's not a controversial statement, though. It's not like, oh, Black Lives Matter, and then people on Facebook are like, well, I don't know about that. Like, what the fuck? Just what I'm trying to say, you know, it's really early and I'm tired already. But what I'm trying to say is that let's focus on the right things. Let's not focus on the people going crazy. Let's focus on actually getting racial justice and justice for all, like, you know, the Americans always say. And yeah, those are my statements on that. I know you didn't need a white girl to tell you all this. You didn't need a white girl to just be like, racism is bad, like I said at the beginning. But I just really wanted to get that out there and bring awareness and talk a bit about how race works here, I guess. And I'm very tired. I'm so sorry that I haven't brought my A game today, but hopefully next week I'll be more pumped to actually talk about this. I'll see y'all next week, and I hope you have a great week, and I hope everything goes fine, and hopefully I find my voice again, because I don't know, I already lost it. God, this is probably the worst episode, but I felt like it was a needed episode, so yeah, see y'all next week.